So I want to talk about the guide now a little bit. So we know we have these characters, these have problems. We've identified some of the problems. And here's the thing, they're going to need a guide, which is your brand. And the best guides are people that have been there and done that, that understand the situation, they empathize with the character's fears and insecurities, they have authority, they have experience, they provide a plan that helps the character win, right? So these are kind of the best guides. Now the question is your brand a good guide? Does your brand tell them how to get to the desired outcome? Yes or no? I want to go deep into branding for a minute, and then we're going to come back to story brand here, right? Because your brand is that guide. And as you think about your customer journey and that plan that you're going to present to them, every touch point in that customer journey, guess what? It represents your brand. So when we talk about what is your brand and how does your brand become a guide, what we're talking about is the entire experience and everything that your brand touches. From the word of mouth that's going on behind your back, to your website, to the email, and to the product packaging and the experience, all of that reflects your brand, right? And so as we think about brand, that's the context I want you to think about it. When we talk about branding, we're going to talk about brand strategy for a minute. So brand strategy, and how do you create a brand, and how do you really make sure that brand is doing the things that you want it to do? One of the things you have is a brand vision. Now we spent quite a bit of time last week talking about brand vision. We didn't call it brand vision, we just called it vision, or a vision framework. But in the context of a brand strategy, that's what we're talking about. Like, what is your purpose and core values of the brand? What's the mission you're trying to accomplish? In branding, a lot of times we often think about the name and the logo and the design and the personality as well. We also think about the experience. How do you position it? What's the story you tell, and the journey and that consistency, right? So again, I went way fast on that. So we're going to take a little bit of a divergent from, like I said, the story brand. And I just want to dive deep into this. What is branding, and how do we create branding for what we're doing? So first of all is the vision framework. So the exercise we did last week really should define and help you understand what is the organization's purpose. Why did we come to existence? What are we trying to accomplish? What are the values that we want represented in those brands, right? So we're not going to spend a lot of time here because we already spent time there last week. Brand identity. So how do you create a brand? So when you think about brand identity, I've kind of broken it down into 4 places. Your name, which I'm also going to say your website, your URL. Your logo, which could also include a tagline or a visual symbol or trademarks. We also talk about the design. So the packaging and design elements of your website, your emails, your products or services, and also the personality of that brand. So some of the human-like characteristics and traits that associate with the brand, right? These are some great examples of the name, logo, and tagline, right? And so we know that the name of the company is an important decision, that it can play a significant role in how your brand is perceived. When you guys see these brands, you immediately have reactions to these brands, whether positive or negative, and you know them. They become a mark, a symbol in your mind, in your brain, the emotion that it creates around those brands, right? And you can see here in these elements, there's a name, Walmart, there's a logo, there's a tagline, save money, live better. Nike, just do it. Coca-Cola, open happiness. Allstate, you're in good hands, right? And what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, hey, this is kind of my purpose a little bit. And it doesn't have to be your purpose statement, but in some ways it's saying, hey, this is the thing I want you to remember about it, and it can inspire them to take action, right? Part of branding is also a brand style guide. Some of you have these, some of you don't, right? But as you think about it, it's like, okay, how do I want my logo and my identity used? What are the colors? Do I have a color palette? Do I have a logo and the brand that, how do I use it in dark colors versus light colors? What's my font? What are the iconography? What's the button look like? Do I all of these things a brand style guide can really give clarity on. And then you follow that brand style guide to create a consistent brand experience from an identity perspective, right? The other thing is that product design should also align with that brand identity. Apple does a great job at this, right? We know that when you see an Apple product, you usually have kind of those, those corners. It's usually pretty clean. There's a specific look and feel that those products have that also relate back to the brand, right? So that brand identity that we're talking about. In a services-based business, this is a little different, right? But you could look at, the proposal in which you give, or the story that you tell. Like, is it consistent with the packaging, the branding that you're trying to do, and is it all aligned, right? Your brand personality is a big part of this. The way you use colors to reflect that brand personality. In this case, here are some brand personality statements. It's sincere, sincerity, excitement, competence, sophistication, ruggedness. And so you might have breakdown of like down to earth, honest, wholesome, cheerful, daring, spirited, imaginative, updated, right? And then, as you kind of define the personality, this is also going to help you dictate the colors you use. If you want order, you might do more of a blue. If you're going ego, it's more red, freedom, orange, social. There's different ways, and there's a whole bunch of color theory in all of this too. But really, it's about creating a brand identity and personality around it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through an exercise, and I want you guys to think about your brand personality. Now, maybe think about it in two ways. What is your brand personality today, and what do you want it to be? And is there a gap? Right? So let's go ahead, take 5 minutes. We're going to go through this exercise of just writing down what are the personality traits of your brand. How would you describe the personality of your brand in 3 to 5 words? If your brand were a person, how would you describe those character traits? What emotions or feelings do you want your brand to evoke? What adjectives or descriptive words align? So go ahead and think about your brand personality, and let's write down 3 to 5 words that describe that brand personality. Okay, go.